Good afternoon, Nick.
Good afternoon, Katheryn. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing well, doing well.
Awesome. So it looks like today we have Jess Knight in our Zoom waiting room, and Jess is coming in to talk to us about a potential NCAA issue with a college scholarship. So we don't have much more information about that, but they're waiting in the waiting room. So I'm ready when you are.
Okay, let's bring them on in.
All right.
Hi, Jess. How are you?
Good, sir. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. My name is Nick, and this is my co-counsel, Katheryn. We're happy to have the opportunity to work with you today. We know you made an appointment to discuss some specific things, but before we talk about what brought you in today, we want to know about you a little more. So can you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I will be starting as a freshman at State University. I have a full ride scholarship to play basketball, but due to the COVID outbreak, we had an outbreak on our team, so we are currently not in season right now. I'm quarantining with a negative test, but that is where it stands right now for basketball season.
All right. Thanks for letting us know. We'll definitely get into those issues once we open up. Are you comfortable with us going by Jess, calling you Jess?
That is perfectly fine.
Perfect. And what personal pronouns would you like Katheryn and I to address you with?
I can either be Mr. Knight or Jess is fine.
Excellent. Perfect. And Katheryn and I both use she, her pronouns.
Okay.
All right, Jess. Have you worked with an attorney before?
I have not worked with an attorney before. This is my first time dealing with an attorney.
All right, awesome. So what we'll do is we'll start off by explaining a little bit about what the attorney-client relationship looks like, so you have a better understanding of what our relationship will look like moving forward. After that, we'll give you a chance to just tell us what brings you in. Finally, we'll be able to give you some hopefully legal and non-legal solutions and provide you with a retainer agreement, so with a representation agreement. So if you decide to move forward with us, you can go ahead and sign that. Does all of that sound pretty good?
Yes, that does, ma'am. Thank you.
Awesome. And throughout this meeting, we're going to be taking notes. So if you see Nick and I looking down, it's because we're taking notes. Feel free throughout to take notes as well. You can type them, you can handwrite them, whatever works for you.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Of course. And Jess, you mentioned you hadn't worked with an attorney before. Are you familiar with the confidentiality rules as they pertain to legal representation?
I am familiar with it a little bit.
Okay, no worries. We'll go ahead and explain them for you. It's important to Katheryn and I that you feel comfortable throughout this session and that you know that you can wholeheartedly trust us. Trust is the foundation of the attorney-client relationship, and confidentiality is what bolsters that trust. So what confidentiality means for us in this space is that any information that you disclose to Katheryn and I, we can't then disclose without your consent. There are some situations, if we go to trial, for example, in which disclosure is impliedly authorized, but Katheryn and I will go ahead and flag those situations for you. And outside of that, the confidentiality rules will work, as I mentioned before. Now, that isn't the same for information that isn't discussed in this space. So for example, if you disclose information to third parties, such as family members or friends, that information doesn't have the same level of protection as the information that we have as we discuss in this space. Does that make sense?
It does. Thank you.
Excellent. Perfect. Now, confidentiality in a virtual environment looks a little bit different, but we've gone ahead and taken some steps to ensure we're protecting your confidentiality in this space as well. This is a secure Zoom link, so it'll just be the three of us on the link. Additionally, Katheryn and I are in rooms where the door is closed and the window is closed, and we're the only individual in the room to protect your confidentiality. Jess, can you confirm for us that that's the same for you, that you're in a room with the door closed, window closed, and you're the only individual in the room?
That is correct.
Excellent. Perfect. Great. And if you happen to lose connection or drop off the call, feel free to just hop back onto the Zoom link that we sent you via secure email. We also ran a conflict check already on some of the names that you provided pre-consultation. If there are any additional names that come up, Katheryn and I will run a subsequent conflict check on those names as well. Okay. Do you have any questions about confidentiality or conflicts? Those are sometimes the more complex aspects of legal representation.
At this time, I do not. Thank you, though.
Excellent. Of course.
All right, Jess, one more thing before we sort of open up the floor to you. So the one thing that we just wanted to reconfirm with you and to acknowledge is that this initial consultation fee has already been taken care of. So don't feel like you have to worry about that. That $100 was already resolved. So here our consultation will be lasting about 45 minutes. So throughout the time, feel free to ask questions. We'll return to fees at the end, but that's just something I wanted to reconfirm with you. And if you don't have any questions at this time, I would love to just open the floor and just give you a chance to tell us what brings you in today.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So the reason I'm coming in today is I have some issues dealing with NCAA rules and my basketball scholarship. As I mentioned, I am a full ride player to the State University. My father recently just got hired on as a strength coach for the football team. And he got hired on around the same time that I accepted the scholarship to State University. Part of my dad's, I guess, accepting the job was a vehicle for him. And prior to any of the games or anything in the COVID outbreak, my own vehicle had broken down, and I had to used my father's vehicle to get to practice. One of the team members had mentioned the word gift, which I know is not favorable in the NCAA, and that's what's brought me here today.
Thank you for letting us know. I think we can definitely dive into some of those issues and talk a little bit more about what that means and what the implications are, Jess. So what sport do you play? How long have you been playing it?
I've been playing basketball, and I've been playing since I was junior high.
That's a pretty good time. I played basketball in my youth, so I can relate to that. Do you hope to continue to play basketball?
I do hope to continue to play basketball, possibly go pro. That's one of the reasons that I chose State, is because they have a excellent record of having some of their players go through their college career and then end up going to the professional league.
Amazing.
That's a huge accomplishment. So I want to acknowledge a college scholarship at State is a big deal. So congrats.
Thank you.
Yeah, a very huge accomplishment. And Jess, I'm wondering how did you feel when you first got that scholarship offer?
I felt very, very relieved. College is not a cheap ticket to go to. So having a full ride and putting my best effort has paid off thus far.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about what the acceptance of the scholarship looked like for you?
Well, the acceptance was basically, it was a full ride. So I know I needed to be on the straight and narrow, keep my grades up academically, not get in any trouble, stuff like that. So I had the option of staying on campus, but since I had my own vehicle and my father is the strength coach, he knows how some players are in terms of like partying and stuff like that. So we both thought that it would be best if I just lived at home for the college career.
Great. And you mentioned that your father was the strength coach there. Was that for the basketball team or for the football team?
He got hired on as a strength coach for the football team.
For the football team.
And can you tell us a little bit more? What was the timeline between him getting hired and your scholarship? I know there was some overlap, but can you clarify that a little bit with us?
So the hiring and me signing to go to State was around the same time. I don't know exactly when my father accepted the job, but I know it was around the same time.
Okay.
And did you and your father talk about him working at State before he had accepted the offer? Is that something you all discussed?
No, not really. It wasn't really anything discussed. I know my father been a football coach for high school, and so it was an opportunity for him to move up and make a little bit more money. So he was excited about that as well.
Sure.
And now I kind of want to move forward a little bit in time and talk about what has brought you to give yourself pause about using the car or the vehicle?
So I know part of the NCAA for college students is no incentives. And the biggest concern was when a teammate had mentioned that I was lucky that I could drive the gift or the truck that my father had gotten for accepting the job as an incentive for his job. So I'm worried that some may take it that he might have gotten the truck for me because of his job. So my biggest concern is that.
Great. And Jess, do you know if your father has any documentation regarding the car that signals that it was delivered directly to him? Is his name on something?
That I'm not sure of.
Okay.
Now, you mentioned that one of your teammates noticed it and called it a gift. Did anybody else on the team notice anything, or did anyone else approach you about this?
No, they have not.
So just to be sure, Jess, I want to make sure we're understanding everything and we're on the same page. It looks like most of the implications that we are concerned about here in regards to NCAA requirements are, forethoughts, right? So imagining what someone else might perceive. There hasn't really been any communication from the NCAA or your school about this car, has there?
That is correct. And I reached out because I didn't want to talk to anyone about this. And I was afraid that if I talked to my father, he might think that he got the job because of me or vice versa. And that was a big implication that I didn't want him to worry about either.
Now, it sounds like part of your goal is just to ensure that your relationship with your dad stays intact. Do I hear that right?
That's part of it. The other part is obviously as a freshman with a full ride, I don't want to start out my career with a scandal, so to speak. So that is the overlooming factor.
And that's completely understandable. I know this is a tough position to be in your first year, and I know it doesn't sound like that's something that you want to deal with at all, because there's a pressure of performing right within your first year and trying to focus on your grades and adjusting. So I hear how tough that may be.
Yeah. And Jess, I echo Katheryn's points, and this is a really stressful time, right? Especially given your love for the sport. And I'm curious to see whether your friend had contacted you about, the gift of being the car, your father's gift being the car, whether that was a phone call, an in-person conversation.
It was actually mentioned after practice. He made the comment of how lucky I was to drive the truck, and that was a gift. And it caught me by surprise that he said that, and I didn't know what to say after that.
I want to return to a little bit about sort of your relationship with your dad. And the reason that I'm going to ask this subsequent question is to make sure that we can represent you, and you are a freshman in college, but I don't want to make assumptions about your age to make sure that that's covered. So do you mind telling us how old you are? Because that will determine whether or not we can in fact represent you, or if representation may have to go through a parent or a guardian.
I'm 19.
Awesome. Okay, thank you.
So moving forward, Jess, given your age, it looks like we will, be able to represent you going forward if you do choose to stay with us. And I think what I'm hearing right now is that we need to have a good idea as to the implications of a possible gift, right, on an NCAA scholarship, but then also talk about ways in which that might be violated, right? So I think having a good understanding of the parameters of the scholarship in and of itself, and then if that scholarship is being implicated at all, what measures and what steps the NCAA or your school takes, and what rights you have in those steps. Hopefully it doesn't get to that, obviously, right? We just want to make sure we have a good idea of what we're wrapping our hands around. But if that's the case, that's also something that Katheryn and I can explain. Does that sound good for you thus far? Is that okay?
Yes, that's perfectly fine. Thank you.
Perfect. And earlier at the start of our conversation, you mentioned a little bit about COVID and the season not having started. So that I think can implicate scholarship. So can you tell us more about what the season looks like for you now?
So when we were playing, obviously we had a COVID positive test on our team, which prevented us from playing our last couple games of the season. And with the NCAA and the bubble, obviously, since we have COVID positive, we're not allowed to go postseason. So currently, I'm quarantining. I have a negative test. So other than that, we're just kind of doing our own workout regimen in terms of keeping ourselves in the game still.
Okay, and I'm assuming just that there were no implications on your scholarship given this COVID pandemic. Did they say anything about that?
No, they didn't.
And is that something that concerns you at all, given the context of where sports and student athletes are specifically in the pandemic?
Not really. I figured as long as I keep my academic grades to an acceptable level and stay out of trouble, I should be, in my own belief, should be all right.
Excellent. Okay, good. So I think now would be a good opportunity to maybe, and as I'm sure you're familiar with, right, the NCAA rules, but talk maybe about some of the provisions that could be implicated here and why your instinct is correct, right, that there might be an issue. So the first thing that I want to talk about is that, you know, you're correct in the sense that receiving a gift of some sort can definitely have a negative perception, and that's because as part of the NCAA, athletes are not allowed to take pay or the promise of pay for competing in a particular sport. So what might be the assumption here by other individuals is that the car in and of itself as a gift, right, could be a form of payment. But the issue that I think we would need to further explore here, right, is the fact that the gift was given to your father and not to you. And then I think we'd also have to further explore that the issue of you and your father starting at seemingly the same time and that issue being tied together. So I want to just affirm that, you know, your instinct is right, like, hey, you know, I should check this out. And I think you're doing a good job in coming to us early on. But did what I say make sense?
Yes, it did. Thank you. And that's the biggest concerns right there.
Right.
And the good thing that I think from what it sounds like is there are a ton of explanations as to why your father received that car, right? And employees often are permitted to have vehicles and obtain vehicles from their university to be able to go to and from work, right? So that is something that I think is beneficial in explaining sort of the route of the car. I think where we'll have a little more time to research is the usage of the car, right? Although it sounds like, you know, your father is the one that has it, is taking care of it at this point in time. It's the idea of you using it and whether or not that means the gift inherently was given to you. I think that's where we're going to have to spend some time researching on to make sure that there are no issues there.
Okay.
And Jess, in regard to the use of the car, have you used it already?
Well, I had a previous car that actually broke down. That's why my father was having me use this one due to financial concerns. You know, we can't just go out and buy a new car. So my father has this car he's not using. So he said that I could use it.
Okay. And how often would you say you've used it thus far?
After it was mentioned that it was a possible gift, I try not to drive it to practices, more of a personal use. Staying away from going to practice with it because I don't want that implication, like you said, of it's been gifted to me.
Okay. So outside of go ahead, Katheryn.
Yeah. So Jess, how else do you get to practice then?
If I'm going to, I will try and like get a ride with my father because he has another vehicle that he uses and he prefers that vehicle. It's a Nissan. So he prefers the Nissan over the truck. So that's how I typically start going now.
And Jess, I'm sure that, you know, it's probably difficult to keep account, right, of how many times you're in a vehicle or how many times you've driven it. But do you know if there's any documentation that might indicate how many times you've used the car or how many times you've been in the car?
Now, when you say been in the car, do you mean driving or actually
driving? Yeah. How many times you have driven the car? Yes.
In total, I'd say maybe 10 times I've driven the vehicle.
Okay.
And outside of driving the car, do you recall how often you are just in the vehicle?
I don't, I'm sorry.
Okay. It sounds like you use like you're in the car a lot, so it's fair to not remember how many times you're just in it. Understandable.
Right.
Okay. So yeah, I think it's interesting just that we're gonna have to further explore, like I mentioned before, right? The initial gift and then exactly what Katheryn has just said with the usage of the car and how that might be implicated by NCAA provisions and what the next steps would look like for you here. I think what we would also additionally have to look for is who the stakeholders would be as to taking next steps or taking any actions against you if it's perceived that you have violated the scholarship recipients, because the scholarship in and of itself, because those are the people who we would need to communicate with to ensure that they know, right, that you are either using the car in a manner that doesn't make it a form of payment, or that you were not the intended recipient of the car in and of itself, that it was a gift. So I think identifying those stakeholders will be beneficial for us as well. Does that make sense, Jess?
It does, thank you.
And what often is the case is like the NCAA works with schools themselves. So when it comes to implementing certain policies and procedures, it's often you're going to the school. So do you know the names of like those people that would be involved, perhaps a coach or something?
I know the football coach's name is Coach Bonder. It is Lance Bonder is who hired my father.
And did you all have any sort of relationship with Mr. Bonder before any of this happened?
I did not. My father's the one that went through, obviously, with the hiring process with the football coach.
Okay, I think now would be a good opportunity to talk a little bit about some of the legal solutions that we might be able to provide, Jess, if you don't have any further questions or comments as to, any of the NCAA provisions.
I do not.
And I think one quick point to just talk about before we move forward is the idea of the coach, the football coach. And do you know exactly anything about the details of your dad's hiring with Mr. Boulder or anything like that?
I'm not too keen on understanding, like what provisions or details were made. All I know is that he got hired on as the strength coach for the football team around the same time that I was looking at going to state.
Okay, thank you.
Katheryn, did you have any other questions as it pertains to the coach?
No.
All right, excellent. Okay, so I think now what, like I said, Jess, would be a good opportunity to talk a little bit about some of the legal solutions that we have here. And see, I think you came to us, number one, at a really good time, right? By acknowledging that, hey, there might be something going on here before there actually are any proceedings was really good on your behalf. To me, I think what's going to be really important is just ensuring that the people who know or who would be able to take steps, right, against you in regards to the scholarship, know about the situation as it pertains to the car in and of itself. So I think the first thing that Katheryn and I would probably do is just research a little bit more about the NCAA provisions as they pertain to payment and whether a gift is, a form of payment and whether the car here could be considered such. And then also look at the recipient, right? Whether you're the intended recipient and if that has an effect as well. And then lastly, look at the usage and see if that affects any of the NCAA provisions. I think once we can wrap our head around that, we have a better idea moving forward whether there are truly any implications here. And if there are implications, I think we could probably talk about drafting some sort of letter or something, making sure that the stakeholder, the coach in this case, is aware of the fact that you are not, right, the intended recipient, or this isn't a form of payment. Does that make sense?
That does make sense.
Yeah. And I think the reason that we do all of this in that initial investigation is because we want to make sure that if there is something to worry about, we know exactly what that thing is. But if there's not, we want to make sure that there are opportunities for you to explain this and to sort of protect yourself and your scholarship moving forward. So like Nick mentioned, being able to communicate and transparently communicate, your conduct and what's been happening, I think could be very helpful and useful. Because if there is another teammate that sees you driving the car or the coach, there could have already been a conversation with the administration of the team so that everyone's sort of aware of where this is happening, why this is happening, and how it's permissible. So those are things I think with the idea of the letter that can be really beneficial in being able to flag that for everyone.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Jess, so far, how do those two things sound for you? So us doing this investigation and then us also formulating this letter that will stipulate, the provisions that you have not violated, right? Or how does that sound for you?
That sounds fine. I mean, the letter gives me a little extra protection, I guess you could say, saying that, hey, I don't own the vehicle. It is not mine. I was not given it. So that gives me a little bit of room as to what can be hopefully done or not done from the school standpoint.
Another thing that I think will be beneficial, and that's going to be dependent on your comfort level, is the idea of having a conversation with your father. I know you don't want it to come off as though somehow the car is related to him getting hired as a strength coach, but I think it would be beneficial to have an open dialogue and communication if you're comfortable to just say, hey, this is one of the things that's concerning. And the only reason that I bring that up is to see if there's a possibility where you can maybe drive the Nissan versus this truck, or if there's something else that you can do in the interim, so it's not difficult for you to travel to practice while we research exactly what the implications are of driving this university vehicle. How comfortable do you feel with that idea?
I could have that conversation with my father and see if he'd be more comfortable driving the truck while we look at avenues of approach where I'd be able to drive the Nissan.
Awesome. And we can always talk about like what language to use or how to have that conversation if you're nervous about it at all, because I know it's often sort of difficult. This sounds like a really delicate position to be in. So if you need assistance in that, we're here for you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Of course.
Jess, so far, do you have any questions about some of the things that we're talking about? Do they seem to be meeting your needs?
They do. You guys are being very informative, not being overcomplicated with me. So it's reassuring that you guys are making sure I understand step-by-step process in which you guys plan to take.
Excellent. Good. Great.
One,
Go ahead, Katheryn.
go ahead, Nick.
No, go. You're fine.
So one other thing that we want to sort of think about is just what looking forward, a revocation of a scholarship or anything like that looks like. And I'll give Nick the chance to just sort of chime in so that we sort of limit and reduce your fear and anxiety about what that could potentially look like in the future.
Yeah. So when we talk about a revocation of a scholarship, Jess, and you might be familiar with this from some of your experience with the NCAA, there's a hearing that's required as part of that process. So it's not just a super scary situation in which your coach can just decide, right, that the scholarship is cut and that's the end of the story. You will have an opportunity to speak a little bit more about your side of the story and then use that in that hearing space. That's a really integral part of this entire process because it allows you the opportunity to explain further as to why the situation is going on and your scholarship isn't simply revoked due to, for example, students' perception, right, of what might be going on. Rather, it's what is actually the case. Does that make sense?
That does.
Excellent. So what we would do there then is ensure that if that happens to be the next step, right? If there is a hearing that is required, that Katheryn and I are preparing you for that hearing, right? With the questions that you can ask or the statements that you would be required to make, and we'll also ensure that the process in which they employ in that hearing abides by processes that are required by federal and state law. We don't want to get too into the constitutional law aspect of it, but there is due process that is required for in these processes. And Katheryn and I would analyze, right, the provisions of those hearings and see whether they're abiding by all those process requirements. Does that make sense?
That does. Thank you.
Excellent. So hopefully that is it's less scary, right? It's not just a complete cessation of the scholarship. It's the opportunity to have that conversation.
Correct.
So if at any point you receive any communication about the school or anyone else reaches out to you, know that we're a call away, and we would actually encourage you to reach out to us just to make sure that we're there to protect you and your rights and everything moving forward. As Nick has just explained, there are a lot of steps and procedures that are required. And often I think sometimes those steps can get overlooked or missed, not by intention, but sometimes the schools are functioning in a routine that they don't always think about exactly what happens or what they're supposed to do. So again, we're here for you. So if things like that do occur, feel free to reach out. We'll be on top of it.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Of course.
All right. So just there's a lot of stuff floated around in the air right now. It's a little bit confusing. We understand that. We want to, dwindle everything down for you. So it looks like what things are falling into two camps. One is going to be this letter, right, that we're going to have with that we're going to send to the school, and that will basically be preceded by an investigation by Katheryn and I about the provisions of the NCAA, your unique scholarship, whether there are any additional components, and then look further into the provisions in regards to payment and gifts and whatnot, and whether any of that is implicated here. So I think that's really the letter part of that. And then I think we also want to make sure that in regards to the scholarship process, right, if there is a revocation hearing, that we provide you the framework to have that conversation as well. In the meantime, I think it's going to be also important for us to give you language to have a conversation with your father about things moving forward, and especially talking about ways in which you can continue to go to practice while all of this is going on, right? Because it would be best if you didn't continue driving the car until we had a better idea, but we want to make sure you're still able to get to practice if that's the case. So I think it's really those two things, and then the third ancillary point is making sure we give you language for that conversation with your father. Is there anything else that we talked about that you think should be added to that?
No, I think that covers a good base of getting started for what we've been talking about in terms of, making sure that the school understands that the vehicle's not mine and that my scholarship isn't going to get hurt at all.
Right.
And then having the conversation with my father about driving his vehicle instead of his truck, so that doesn't cause any further implications down the road that someone could say, well, he's still driving it. So if I stop using that and have that conversation with him, I'm sure he'd understand.
Excellent.
Awesome. And as things keep going and things progress and we get to different places, we can always talk about what additional solutions look like, and what additional things that can be done to just make sure that you are okay and that you're protected and you can keep playing basketball and keep going to practice and being the student athlete that you are. So.
Okay.
Excellent. Okay, so I think we have a good idea of what the steps are going to look like moving forward. I think now would be a good time to address the fees and talk a little bit about what that's going to look like.
Yeah, so we recognize that you're a student athlete, and there are restrictions on your ability to work outside of that with NCAA. And I'm not sure, are you familiar with sort of those restrictions?
I am not, honestly.
Okay, and I can tell you about that. So I think you're permitted to work outside of practice in school, so long as like you are not working based on your athletic ability, you're not getting compensation for your notoriety, and that you get compensated for work. So oftentimes NCAA athletes don't always get the opportunity to work outside of school. And the reason that I'm bringing that up is to talk about fees, because we want to be really transparent with you and recognize that there are some limitations on your ability to work outside of being a scholarship full-time student. So that's sort of where the basis is coming from for you to be aware also in the future. If that's something that you want to do, there are some legal limits to it. Does that make sense?
Yes, that does.
Okay, awesome. So moving forward, if you decide to go ahead and have us represent you, our hourly fee rate is $200 an hour. And that's for work that we do on your matter. If we work together, we won't double bill you for that. That's a one-time bill for our work together. But if things were to get more complicated, we can talk about that further.
Okay.
All right.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right. So it looks like we are going to just lay out a quick timeline so we're all on the same page moving forward. Right after this call, Jess, Katheryn and I are going to send you an email that has a couple of different documents. It'll have the representation agreement that you will go ahead and sign, and that will constitute Katheryn and I's engagement letter. And then it'll have the fee schedule and arrangement that Katheryn just spoke about. There'll be a copy of the confidentiality agreement outlining some of the things that I spoke about at the beginning. And then it'll also have our contact information and ways in which you can contact us after hours if you need to do so. Once you've accepted all of these documents and Katheryn and I have the engagement letter in hand, we'll go ahead and start on the next steps of our legal solutions, which the first thing is going to be that initial investigation. For that investigation, we're probably going to need a couple of documents from you just to help us make sure that we can wrap our hands around the whole issue. So if you can find, the provisions of the scholarship, any sort of additional documents that outline the way in which you're supposed to carry yourself as an NCAA athlete, I think that would be helpful for us so we can begin our research there. Does that make sense, Jess?
That does, and I'll try and get that information for you.
Perfect, great. And then at the end of the email that I'm going to send you, there will be a doodle or when to meet. And if you just fill that out with your availability, I'll make it for the end of closer to the end of next week. If you fill that out with your availability, Katheryn and I will then try to meet with you at the time that you're available. So it'll probably be Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Does that make sense?
That does, sir. Thank you.
Excellent.
And by that time, hopefully we'll have some sort of update on where we are with the investigation and what we've been able to find. Okay.
All righty. I appreciate that.
Awesome.
Of course. Well, Jess, thank you so much for coming in. If you have any questions in the meantime, we are just an email away, but we appreciate talking with you today.
All right. Thank you, you too.
Bye, Jeff.
Bye.
All right, Nick, how do you think it went?
I think it went well. Jess came to us at a really good time. I'm glad there aren't really any steps or proceedings being taken by the school. I think that puts us in a good situation to really lay things out on his side and just clear everything up there. And I think, he's obviously super passionate about his sport, so that's going to be something that we'll have to watch out for and be careful of.
I agree. I think what's really important is what you mentioned about making sure we get the agreements and anything that he signed. I think that would be really great. I know we already know sort of what the NPA, the NCAA requirements are generally, but getting some of that additional documentation, I think will be very important throughout.
I think so too. So I think getting that documentation, and given the fact that he hasn't worked with an attorney before, I think it's going to be super important for us, right, to be very clear about the elements of those provisions, what they mean, what their legal implications are. Because even though he's an athlete and probably has experience with that in some capacity, it'll be important for us to be super transparent about that too.
And I think our work and sort of part of our counseling here is not just going to be like, what are the legal implications? I think for him, it's just really dealing with also some familial conflict. And I think that's something that we should have on our radar as we move forward. Obviously, we'll be only representing him, but if there are concerns about his father and how to approach certain things, that's something that we should definitely just keep an eye out and keep asking about.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that, glides in smoothly into how we can maybe split the responsibilities moving forward.
Okay.
So it looks like there are, three things that we're doing, right? That initial letter that's going to be preceded by the investigation, the language for that conversation with his father, and then steps that we would need to take in case that there's a revocation hearing about his scholarship. So I think I can look into some of the aspects of the letter investigation once he sends over that documentation. If you want to look at maybe some aspects of the revocation.
Absolutely. I think I have some familiarity on some of those hearings and due process requirements, so I can definitely take a look and have that on our file as a backup if we get to that point.
Excellent. And I think while I'm drafting the letter, there's probably going to be language in there that might be helpful for the conversation with his father as well. So I think maybe I can, make a quick little addendum, right, to that and just add language that might be helpful to use with his father too, if we think that's okay.
I think that's perfect. I think that's really good. Really good. So
okay.
For us,
I think we should meet with him. Like we said, we're going to meet with him probably next Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, based on his availability. So we should probably meet maybe Tuesday morning, if that works for you.
Yeah, I think that would work anytime between 9 and 12.
Okay, perfect. 9 works for me. So I will send you a calendar invite with the relevant connection details so then we can stay on board.
And can you just make sure when he replies to me that I'm CC'd so we know when our start time is?
Perfect. Yeah, will do. Will do. All
Awesome.
right. Thank you so much, Katheryn. I think this was good. I'm excited to move forward.
All right, Nick. Well, have a great weekend and we'll touch base next week.
All right. See you soon. Bye.
All right.
Hi, Brennan. How are you?
Hey, Mallory, I'm good. It's good to see you.
Yes, it's good to see you too. I'm glad to see that you are happy, healthy, and safe.
Yeah, that is the checklist these days. I wish that we could be back in the office and see each other face to face, but this keeps people safe and it's some face-to-face interaction. So we have to do what we got to do.
Yeah, I agree. I think safety right now should be everyone's number one priority. So I'm glad we at least have this platform and we are able to see each other face to face. It's somewhat normal. So.
Yeah, I'm hoping we can see the end in sight, get those vaccinations rolling in and be back in the office soon. But this works for now. So what do you have today?
So today we have a Mr. Knight is coming in. He has some potential NCAA issues with his college scholarship.
Well, the NCAA is notoriously difficult to deal with sometimes. So we'll have to see what these issues are. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I know the NCAA has a lot of restrictions. I hate to hear that there could be an issue with the scholarship. I know athletes work really hard to get those scholarships and some need them in order to even go to college and get that education. So I'm hoping it's nothing too serious and absolutely something that we can help with.
Yeah, let's hope that we can get him the help he deserves. I'm ready if you are. You want to bring him in?
Absolutely.
All right. Mr. Knight?
Good afternoon. Can you hear me okay?
I can, thank you.
Okay, amazing. We are both wearing headphones, so if at any point you can't hear us, please let us know. We'll try taking them out and see if that helps, okay?
All right.
Well, we are so pleased to be able to meet with you. I want to go ahead and introduce us. My name is Mallory Oliver. This is my co-counsel, Brennan Collins. Please feel free to call us by our first name. Is there anything you would prefer for us to call you?
You can call me Jess or Mr. Knight.
Okay.
All right, Jess, as a student athlete in these times, have you become a Zoom master?
I'm working my way up to become a Zoom master. Yes.
Have y'all been able to be back in the classroom, or are you doing most things on Zoom or virtual?
We're still doing most things virtual.
Yeah, so that's kind of where we're at. We're adjusting, we're learning on the fly. It's kind of what we have to do at this point. So what I want to go over now is if we run into any technical difficulties, we have your phone number from when you signed up for the meeting. We can give you a call and just do this audio only. We want to work face to face. It's easier for us, but we have to do what we have to do. Also, the Zoom link has a phone number that you can call into and we'll still be in this Zoom room, just audio. And a weird little finicky thing about Zoom, it's kind of my pet peeve, is that when we start talking at the same time, because there's that little delay and it feels like we're stepping on each other's toes. I hate when I do that, but we apologize. We're sorry if it happens. It's just kind of an awkward circumstance of Zoom.
No, I understand.
So our assistant told us you came in to speak about some NCAA issues, some scholarship issues, and I promise we're going to get to all that. But before we do, we really just want to get to know you a little bit better. So could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I am a 19-year-old student. I just signed on to State University for a full ride scholarship.
Wow.
Been playing basketball since junior high is when I started, and I've just loved the sport and just kept progressing.
Well, have you been paying attention to March Madness, been watching the games? I hate to have you have to meet with us during that time.
Actually, I have been. Our team ended up having a COVID positive case, so we actually ended up not playing the last couple of games of the season. Hence, we're not playing in the postseason now. I am currently quarantining with a negative test, so wow. I'm staying safe and we're being cautious still with the team and how everyone's handling that.
Well, I'm so glad to hear that you're safe and that you have a negative test right now. That's amazing to hear. I'm so sorry you're missing out on March Madness. Yeah, I know that's an exciting time and that's a dream for most basketball players. So I hate that you're missing out on that. And I hate that you have to come see us during March Madness instead of watching it, but we're here to help. So
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, Jess, have you ever met with an attorney before?
I have not met with an attorney before.
So the reason I ask is that every attorney kind of handles their meetings differently. So Mallory, do you want to kind of explain our roadmap and how we do things?
Yeah, absolutely. So just like Brennan just said, every attorney runs their meetings a little differently. We like to split ours into 3 main sections. The first section is going to be the fact gathering section. We're going to get to the details of why you came in, let you tell us your side. And then we're going to ask you some follow-up questions just so that we can get all the information that we need. We're then going to go to your goals, and that's really what we can do for you, why you came to see us. And finally, we're going to give you some legal options that are going to best meet those goals for you. I do want to let you know we save our fee discussion until the end. The reason we do that is because we want to determine the complexity of your case so that we can recommend the most cost-effective solution for you. And while we're talking about fees, I really want to thank you for paying that $100 consultation fee for today. That will cover our time. So just so you know where that's going, that's covering our time for today.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
So, and when you paid that $100 consultation fee, you gave us a list of names of anybody that might be involved in this issue. We ran those names through what we call a conflicts check. That's just to make sure that we've never represented anybody adverse to your interest. That came back clean. We have nothing to worry about there. As you go on telling us about things today, we will inquire about other names that you say and make sure that we have them spelled right and everything. And that's just so we can run the conflicts check again to be absolutely sure. But we don't foresee that being an issue. It hasn't been an issue so far. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. But that's why we're kind of prying into names extra deep.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
And I want to remind you and stress that this meeting today is covered by confidentiality. I promise that nothing that you say will leave this room. So feel free to be as open and as forthcoming as you possibly can. Anything that you say will help us. As long as you don't have any communications with anybody outside of the room, we will be covered by confidentiality. So as long as it's not breached by talking to anybody else, you're good to go. So feel free, just be open, whatever works. That'll apply regardless of if you decide to hire us or not. So don't worry about if you choose to go another route that we're going to say anything. Don't worry about that.
All righty, sir. Thank you.
And before we get going on your issue, I promise that's next. I just want to urge you that you are in control of this meeting. We want you to feel like you're in the driver's seat. Me and Malory are both going to be taking notes. That's just so we have an accurate record. We want you to take notes if you feel like. Feel free to interrupt us, ask questions. We want you to be in control. So this is your meeting. We're here to help you. So just keep that in mind as you go.
All righty.
Do you have any questions about anything that we've thrown at you? It's kind of a lot, I know.
Not as of right now. No, I appreciate it.
All right. Well, I know you're eager to get going. So can you tell me a little bit about what brings you in today?
So I am a freshman, like I stated, at State University, with a full ride playing basketball. My father had recently been hired on as the strength coach for football, and during his hiring process, apparently he was given a truck. I had driven the truck to practice, and one of the teammates had commented that they were kind of poking fun that I was driving a gift, and that is unsettling because that is obviously against NCAA rules, and I don't want to get in trouble for driving a vehicle that's not mine. And that's the main reason why I've come to you guys to seek advice.
So tell me a little bit more about your father. Has he been a strength coach in college before?
This is actually his first college job. He's been a football coach his entire career, mainly doing high school. So he was pretty excited that he got hired on as the strength coach at State University.
Yeah, it's really awesome that you get to work kind of side by side with your father.
Yeah, I mean, he's the football strength coach, but I mean, I'm playing basketball, but yeah, we can still see each other from time to time.
Yeah, you're not too far.
Correct.
So tell me a little bit about your recruiting process. Were a lot of schools after you wanting you to play for them?
I was actually highly recruited. The reason I chose State is because they've had a lot of basketball players go from college to professional. So that was one of the key aspects I was looking at, was a career track of progressing to a higher career in basketball.
So you mentioned that you came here because you wanted to seek some advice about, if this became an issue later. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Well, since I have a full ride scholarship, I don't want, this misunderstanding of me driving my father's truck one time to practice have any chance of hurting my scholarship and or have an NCAA scandal starting out as a freshman. That's not exactly how I want it to go. So I want to make sure what can be done, what can't be done. So that's my biggest concern is, am I in the wrong? Am I in the right?
Right.
You said that some teammates made some comments about you driving the truck and driving a gift. Has anybody maybe from compliance or the administration said anything about that?
No, it was just really unsettling that I guess some of the teammates misconstrued or, even mentioned that it was a gift, even though it's my father's. So
Yeah, this is obviously a unique issue that you have here. Have you and your father discussed this issue?
no, we haven't. And part of the reason why we haven't discussed it is I don't want him to think that he got hired on at state as the strength coach was because I was highly sought after. So there's that conflict also. And I mean, I'm living at home. So my father knows that one of the reasons I actually drove the truck was my car broke down. So my own vehicle, to have it repaired, actually was going to cost more to get it fixed than what it was worth. So I ended up driving the truck that time. And that's when the comment was made that it was a gift, which it's conflicting for a lot of reasons.
Can you take me through the timeline of your recruitment to when you decided, committed to State U or signed to State U and your father being offered the job?
They were around the same time. I'm not sure exactly when. I can't pinpoint when my father actually, took the job versus when I was accepted. So I just know it was around the same time.
What kind of truck is it?
It is a fully loaded Ford Raptor.
Do you know about the value of that truck?
The value from what my father's told me is about $70,000.
Did you speak with your father about any restrictions that were put on the truck when he received it?
I did not know.
And you might not know this, but do you happen to know your dad's salary as the strength coach?
I don't know my dad's salary.
Is it typical for strength coaches or coaches at your institution to receive company vehicles?
To the best of my knowledge, I don't know.
Okay.
When your father received this job offer, had he been looking for something on the college level, or did State University approach him?
I believe State University approached him, though I'm not sure if he approached them. So it's up in the air on which way it went, honestly.
Okay.
Have you asked your father whether the school is the one who initiated the truck, or did maybe he ask for it in, negotiating the terms of the job?
To my surprise, the school is the one that initiated the truck to my father, kind of as like an incentive to come from the high school up to the state level or the State University level.
Can you tell me about the dynamics on your team, the relationships?
In turn for basketball or?
Yes, for basketball.
The dynamics are pretty good. We're all pretty open about how everyone handles themselves. So I'd say we are all on a pretty first name basis in terms of talking, having conversations. That's why when the teammate mentioned that it was a gift, that kind of threw me off and started throwing some concerns, because if we're all pretty open, word can travel fast.
What was your response when they mentioned that it was a gift?
I actually didn't have a response. I was more taken back, and I just was like, I didn't know what to say. So once they said that, I kind of just stopped talking. I don't want to get myself in trouble. Hence the reason I've come to you guys for advice.
Right, absolutely. And when did the conversation take place?
This took place about a month and a half ago.
Okay.
During your recruiting process, did any of the schools that recruited you, including State University, ever just outright offer you a gift or money or anything?
No. And one of the reasons why I like State is because they follow the NCAA guidelines, and they're pretty strict about it. So, and that's not all universities are like that, but State University is pretty keen on following their strict guidelines.
Yeah, we know certainly that not every program is clean cut around the edges. So during your recruiting process, did you ever mention to a coach that you were having your car had broken down, you were having trouble?
No, actually, I was already already at State University, and that's when, I mean, trying to go to practice, obviously car breaks down, obviously couldn't get to practice, so I actually had to take the truck.
Do you have you had issues like this before with your car?
I've had minor issues, but I mean, it's a 2004 Taurus, so it's a fairly old car. But the cost of the transmission repair and other problems was actually was going to cost more than the worth of the car.
Right.
My first car when I turned 16 was a 2002 Ford Taurus, so I can relate to your issues there. So how close was your dad heavily involved in your recruiting process?
Not really, no. Because I've been, like I said, I've been playing basketball since junior high, so I kind of had the ins and outs to the best of my ability. He did help out a little bit if there were things I didn't understand, but he mainly had me try and take the reins to understand what I was going to be getting myself into in terms of, you know, scholarship, basketball, what's needed of me, what's not needed of me.
Okay. And I don't think we got your father's name. I apologize for not asking earlier. Can we get your father's name?
My father's name is Bobby Knight.
Okay.
That's a fun name. I know there's a well-known basketball coach.
Yes, he doesn't throw chairs though.
I was about to say, I hope your dad has a little bit better temperament than the Bobby Knight I know of.
Correct.
So when you were being recruited, did your dad and the coaches at State U ever have any conversations that you know of?
In terms of like me playing or his employment?
Yeah, more of your basketball coaches and your scholarship, not as much about the football position.
Not really, no. When it came to like the scholarship wise and the ins and outs of that, the coach and the university sat and talked with me. So it was mainly just about what's expected of a student athlete, how they present themselves, etc. What the do's and do nots.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you drove the truck to practice because your car broke down. Is that the first time that you had driven the truck?
The first time, that was the first time I'd driven the truck to practice.
Okay.
And I tried not to, obviously, because I don't want that misconception going on.
Absolutely.
Does the truck have the school's like name on the side of it?
No, it does not. It's just a regular, I guess you could say, you could go to the lot and buy pickup truck.
How did your teammates know that it was your dad's truck from the school?
I actually mentioned that it was my father's truck when they were talking about the gift. And I mean, I didn't respond in the way that, you know, oh, it's a gift. No, it's not a gift. My response was, that's not a gift. That's my father's truck. So, but you know, misconceptions and can spread quickly. So.
What was the teammate's name that mentioned that it was a gift?
Jeff.
Jeff, what's his last name?
Benz, B-E-N-Z.
B-E-N-Z. How's y'all's relationship?
We have a pretty good relationship. So I mean, he's pretty forthcoming when and outspoken himself. So when he sees something, he'll say something.
Is he also on scholarship?
I believe so. I'm not too sure, but I believe he is.
Okay.
So are you now back in your old car, or are you still driving your father's car?
My father actually has a Nissan Altima that he prefers to drive. And since my Ford Taurus has obviously not worked, I've been driving the truck, but not to practice or anything. And obviously, since with COVID, we're still doing virtual, so I'm not like driving around campus with it. So it's mainly go to and get some things when need be.
Yeah. Do you know if your name is on the insurance under the truck?
To my knowledge, it is not.
Okay.
When Jeff approached you and said it was a gift and said things like that, did you talk to your father about those comments?
I didn't, because I was concerned that my father got hired because I was highly sought after So my biggest concern was that he would think that he got hired at state and was given the truck because of me. So that we have not had a conversation like that yet. And I've been worried to talk to him about that.
What gives you the impression that your father was hired because of your recruitment?
Like I stated, earlier on, that I was highly sought after.
Right.
And when I was talking to the coach, they were also talking to my father about, going from high school coaching to becoming the strength coach for the football team. So I was a little bit concerned about that situation. But then when he got the truck, and then obviously the word gift popped up, it started getting me thinking, well, was he hired because of me, and did he get the truck because of me? So that's been a bothersome section. I didn't really want to just come out and say to my, hey, you might have got the job because of me, or I got state and they gave you a truck to, here you go, through your father, here's a truck. And that's one thing I don't want happening. So
Right.
So do you believe that even if you would have committed to another school in a different conference, states over, that state you would have still been interested in hiring your father and still given the truck?
I'm not sure. I can't say, whether a truck would be involved or not. State is relatively close, so it would be an opportunity for my father. So that is a possibility that state still could have hired him. Whether a truck would have been involved or not, I can't say.
That's okay. I understand. I'm just trying to piece it together.
Correct.
I have a very specific question. I'm not sure if you're going to know the answer to this. Do you know how long your father's contract is for?
I do not know how long my father's contract's for.
Okay.
Well, Jess, do you have any questions for us at this time?
As of right now, no. I mean, if you have any other questions, I can try and give you a little bit more specifics, but I'm just I'm kind of curious what possibilities can be done to help me, not get into any further for implicated predicaments, if there is any right now.
Right. I have one more
That's what I was
question.
gonna ask.
Sorry. So do you know if your father were to leave the school, if he were to have to return the truck?
In terms of anything dealing with my father's job wise, I'm not sure what stipulations were put on. All I know is that he got obviously a pay raise, because going from high school to college is going to be a substantial difference in pay, and then that he was given a truck as part of, I guess, accepting the job offer there.
Okay.
Well, Jess, is there anything else you can think of to tell us that you think might be beneficial for us to know?
Off the top of my head, I can't think of anything else, honestly.
Okay, well, if anything pops up, let me know. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to recap everything that I have written down that you've said. Please feel free, if I say something wrong, interrupt. If you think I skip over an important fact, let me know. Or if anything else just comes to mind, just let me know at that time.
Okay.
All right, so you're a freshman at State U. You play basketball there. You're on a full ride for basketball, and you were a highly touted prospect coming out of high school. Your dad has been a football coach his whole life locally around State U. He was hired at State U as their strength coach. He doesn't really interact with you as a basketball player. He sticks to the football team. And as he was recruited to be the strength coach as well, he was given a truck by State University, and you drove it on a day because your car broke down. And teammate Jeff Benz said, "Oh, you're driving a gift." So it's a fully loaded Ford Raptor worth about $70,000. You're coming to us to kind of make sure that you don't want to get into any further trouble. You don't want this to become an issue before. It hasn't really become an issue now, but you just want to make sure you nip it in the bud before it becomes something. Is that pretty accurate?
Correct. I don't want to, there's that, and then not losing the full ride scholarship.
Not losing the scholarship. Obviously, that is very important.
Correct.
And is there anything else you can think to add?
No, that covers most of it. Yeah.
Okay, so now we're going to move on to the goals section. So, you've mentioned that you really just want to make sure that your scholarship is secure and that you are not going to get, taken off the team because of this incident. Are there any concerns that you have? Any other concerns?
No, the main thing is, NCAA scandals can follow you forever. So this, you know, if there is a potential scandal, it could potentially harm me following my career path of going pro.
Okay. So would you say it's correct to say that, you know, your number one goal is just to secure that scholarship for you, and then second would be just to make sure that this isn't a scandal, this doesn't turn into a scandal?
Correct. Is that's going to be the best thing is making sure that I haven't violated scholarship guidelines, and that the truck doesn't, you know, my father's truck doesn't turn it into a scandal with me.
Right.
And saying that, oh, it's his truck, but it's actually my father's.
Right. Okay.
So just right off the bat, as we move on to some of the more legal options and things, I know that it's generally frowned upon. It turns some heads when a school recruiting a player hires a father, but that's not against the NCAA guidelines to hire a father, especially because you said your father has been a football coach his entire life locally at a high school. You didn't say, but I assume he's been successful to have offers from colleges. So a successful high school football coach in the area getting a job as a strength coach isn't out of the ordinary. I know my favorite basketball team has a father on the coaching staff. It's not atypical.
Yeah.
The concern will be more on whether the NCAA will look at the truck as a gift to your father in order to secure your commitment and your signature on your letter of intent. That's more where the issues will arise.
Okay.
Yeah, as Brennan said, I think we need to definitely do a little bit more research into the school to see if it is normal that they give their coaches vehicles in order to get around. Something that I would suggest for you is if you could switch cars with your father as of right now until this gets settled, maybe have him drive the truck and then you drive his car for right now, just to make sure that there's no other, you know, witnesses to you getting out of the truck in case there does become an issue.
Okay. I can make sure that happens.
So we'll never do anything that you're not comfortable with. This is all your choice. So anything that we throw at is just a suggestion. So don't worry if we say something that you're like, oh no, wouldn't want to do that. Just let us know. We'll cancel it right then. So don't worry about that. I think it wouldn't hurt to try to get out in front of this and have a meeting with the compliance office at your university, with maybe the athletic director. And then if the athletic director deems necessary, maybe the football coach and the basketball coach, but just kind of to let them know, like, hey, my father's qualified. I know that this could look bad. And maybe they're there to help you as compliance officers. They want you eligible as much as you want to be eligible. Like you said, you're a highly touted recruit, you're a freshman. They want you there and they want to help you go pro. So I think it might be beneficial for us to just start with a friendly conversation and let them know, like, they know it. They know your father has the truck. They're the university. So let them know, do we need to tell the NCAA? Do we have any worries there? So how do you feel about that?
I think that's one avenue approach we can take. I mean, I'm open to suggestions for any avenue approach. I mean, obviously you guys may have a couple or so, and we can look at each one and see what would be most beneficial for my position going forward.
Absolutely.
Right. I agree. And like Brennan said, I think a sit down meeting, you know, a friendly conversation is one of the best ways to start something like this. You want to maintain those relationships. You want to stay on the team. I would imagine you would want your father to stay employed at the school. So anything we can do to really maintain those relationships is going to be a number one priority for us. I think what we can do, we can absolutely go over the NCAA's regulations. I would love to get a copy of your letter of intent that you signed and your student athlete handbook, just to go ahead and look through those to see if anything is mentioned in either of those.
Okay.
So at that sit down meeting, if that's the route that we decide to go, we can either accompany you and you can show up represented by counsel, just let them know. It can come off as intimidating, but we can just let them know, like, hey, we're just here to help. We're making sure that everything is straight and narrow. Or we can coach you up, draft some talking points, let you go in if that's something you feel more comfortable with. But like we said, we're not going to do anything that you don't want. So it'll be up to you whether we accompany you or not.
Okay. I appreciate that.
Yep. I think it's great that you came to us before, you know, coming to anybody else. I think the situation could have gotten out of hand. And so I think it's absolutely remarkable that you came and sought counsel when you did. I think getting out ahead of this issue is the perfect way to go.
Correct. And that's what I was trying to avoid, was having anything go from something small to blossom and turn into a total disaster. So I figured getting out ahead of it would be the best possibility.
Yeah, so we definitely want to look into it. If for some reason the NCAA, or if we even go to the NCAA, but if it's deemed to be a gift, I don't know, you say you haven't really spoken to your father much. It could come down to your father. Is this a gift? Is this not a gift? So I think I'd want to look into his contract. I don't know if he would be open to giving it to us, but with a public university, state university, we could do an open records request for his contract and see kind of how they described the vehicle. I think that's definitely an option we could do.
Okay. Now, would that have any implications since it's, his contract or his agreement with the school? If it mentions gift or anything, would that possibly come back on me?
If it does, just flat out say that it's a gift. I doubt that they would put that in writing. That's kind of the concerning thing, is that I doubt that they would say it's a gift. But if it does come out as a gift, it might hurt your eligibility. But we'll kind of cross that bridge if we get there. We're just going to try to let them know, hey, my dad was qualified. They hired him. This had nothing to do. I never knew about the truck. This was never a gift. I never had any knowledge of this. And we'll see how that goes.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think if the NCAA, if it comes down to it, the NCAA does declare it a gift. They do have some routes that you could take. We could write an appeal to the NCAA, kind of stating your side of the story. This wasn't a gift specifically to you. You are, I would assume, a dependent under your father. And if you're considered a dependent under your father, they are allowed to help you financially. So there are, I don't want to say some loopholes in this rule, because I don't want it to sound like we're alleging that you did anything. But if the NCAA does declare that, we always have the right to appeal to the NCAA, tell them your side of the story, and kind of see where it goes from there.
Okay. I appreciate that.
Do you have any questions about anything that we've thrown at you?
As of right now, I don't. You guys have been pretty straightforward and clear on what you guys are planning to do. And if I don't understand anything, I'll make sure to ask. I appreciate that.
Yeah, we really appreciate that you feel comfortable asking questions. We want you to do that. We want to make sure that you feel completely in the know at every step of the process. So if we do move forward and you do hire us as our attorneys, that's when we could hire us as your attorneys. That's when we could start working. So kind of that first step, do you think you would feel comfortable with the sit-down meeting with compliance and maybe the athletic director? Is that a first step that you'd be interested in?
Yeah, that's a route we could start looking at and see what information they're going to need and what information you'll need to start building if there's a issue, we can obviously branch off and go different ways in terms of what they want us to do, what my legal representation would be doing. So
right. And after that meeting, if something does come up that we didn't mention here, we can absolutely have we will have another sit down meeting with you to discuss what options you want to take. Brennan mentioned earlier, you're in the driver's seat. This is your representation. So we would never do anything you're uncomfortable with. And we want to make sure that you are aware of what's going on the whole time. This is your future. We want to help you, get to the NBA if that's where you want to go, and maintain your scholarship and your education.
correct.
So I know that you're in quarantine and you've probably just had nothing to do but sit and think about this. Are there any options that you had thought of that you maybe wanted to ask us about or explore?
So I know we mentioned about, putting the truck on the line, talking to them about the vehicle and all that. How would we go about making sure that I don't lose my scholarship? Because that's obviously another big talking point. NCAA scandal is big, but losing a full ride scholarship that's a pretty big chunk of change for myself and family.
Yeah,
So.
I understand how devastating that could be. So I think that's the reason why we want to get out in front of this and let compliance know that you didn't know about this. You don't believe it's a gift. Your dad, you certainly think he's qualified to be the strength coach. We might have to request that if this could even look like a gift, maybe your father, he has that Nissan that he prefers to drive. We might need to see if he would be open to returning the car back to the university and saying, hey, if this could be an issue, I just want to wash my hands of it. I'm sure he wants the best for you. So we can look into that.
Okay.
But I think coming forward is the best thing for your scholarship, because if you sit and this comes out and it breaks on ESPN first thing right after going into your conference tournament or something, that could look worse for you.
Correct.
Yeah, and also to that point, if they do try to strip your scholarship, we do always have that appeal process to the NCAA, and so we can really let them know exactly what happened, let them know that you've thought about this, and that appeal process is always there. So just know, even if they do try to take it, we always have that appeal.
Okay, so I have a couple avenues that we could approach then.
So like Mallory's already said, we definitely appreciate you coming to see us. We think this is an issue that definitely an attorney could help you with.
Yeah.
I know that you're a student and you're busy and you're an athlete, but I do have a little bit of homework for you. Is that okay?
Oh, that's perfectly fine.
We would love to be able to look over your scholarship, your letter of intent, and any other communications that you had with State University during your recruiting process where they sent you letters or anything like that that might be relevant.
Okay,
Do you still have that, the scholarship and everything?
I do. I still have all that information.
And then we'd love to take a look at your student handbook with the university. And then if you have a separate student athlete handbook with State U's athletic department program, we would like to see that as well.
I'm sure I can get a copy of that and I can get it to you guys.
And that would just give us a good look at kind of how State University handles their compliance and handles their, if we need to appeal something to a board, how do we get in front of them? What's their process? That just gives us an insight into that.
Okay. I'll make sure to try and find as much information that I have, and if I need to get, like you said, the handbooks and that, I'm sure I will have those readily available. You know, as a student, I should be able to get a copy of those, and I can make sure to get a copy to you.
Thank you.
To both of you. Make sure you guys have what you need to help me out.
Thank you.
Yeah, that would be great. Now we're going to go to the fee discussion that I mentioned earlier. So based on what we've just discussed, I think an hourly rate is probably going to be the best option for your particular legal issue. I do want to let you know we do work as a team. So if you do decide to hire us, we will be working together on your case. We charge $200 an hour, and that's for us separately. I do want to let you know we bill monthly, so you will get a monthly invoice that tells you exactly what we're doing. I don't want you to be surprised at all whenever you receive a bill. You will know exactly what we're doing. Also, if we need to, I know you're a student, if we need to set up a reduced monthly payment plan, we can absolutely do that for you and discuss that.
Okay.
Do you have any questions?
No, not as right now. I mean, in terms of, payment and everything, I'll obviously have to talk to my father in terms of payment, and then like you mentioned, like having a reduced fee or lower it. Yeah, the reduced fee. I mean, we can work with something. I mean, I could talk to my father about how we could do the payments.
So I understand that you need to talk to your father about the payments. I just want to remind you again that anything you say to him will leave this confidentiality, this confidential room. So I would just be kind of careful. I'm not saying keep everything a secret from him, but just be careful when you say anything important about what we talked about today.
Okay, I'll make sure to keep that in mind.
So, and if you do decide to hire us as your attorneys, I would love to set up another meeting so we can kind of prep for that meeting with the administrator and give you those talking points and maybe decide, do you want to be represented by counsel at the meeting, or do you just want us to coach you up?
Okay, I appreciate that. Yeah, that would be.
So you're the student, you're the athlete, you have a crazy busy schedule. I'll let you decide. Is there a time early next week that works best for you?
End of the week would work best for me.
End of the week, so maybe Thursday morning. Is that okay?
Thursday mid-morning should be fine.
Mid-morning, 10:30?
Sure, that works.
Okay, Mallory, Thursday at 10:30?
Yep, that works for me.
All right, Thursday the 25th at 10:30. That is great.
Okay, so we're going to send you back into the waiting room that you were in before the meeting. This is so you can review our retainer agreement. So the retainer agreement is basically a contract between us. It sets forth your expectations for us, our expectations for you throughout our representation, as well as our fee discussion that I just mentioned. Do know that we are not your attorneys until you sign that. But when you sign that, as soon as we get it in, we'll start working, drafting up those talking points and looking over some of those documents that you send us. I don't mean to use too many puns, but we'll get the ball rolling on your case. If you have any questions, we'll stay here for about 15 minutes. If you don't have any questions, feel free to sign it and log off. If we haven't heard from you within about 48 hours, we're going to give you a call just to make sure that you don't have any questions and that you're doing okay. So
right.
Does that sound okay with you?
That sounds perfect. Thank you very much.
It was a pleasure to meet you. I know that you're quarantining. I'm glad that you're testing negative. Stay safe, stay healthy. Good luck on your next season of basketball. We'll meet with you shortly, okay?
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, bye.
Oh, that is
Well,
tough.
Mallory. Yeah, I think I'm worried that he's kind of stuck behind a rock in a hard place. He truly does believe that this was not contingent on his signature. He was never told anything, and I think that his lack of knowledge, if it does end up being a gift, will be important. I truly
Yeah.
believe that and his dad seems qualified. I mean, local high school coaches
Yeah.
move up to college level all the time. And like I told him, it's not illegal. It's not against NCAA guidelines for a school to hire a parent. That truck is a little concerning though.
Yeah, it is. And, you know, I'm really curious to see if every other coach gets it, or if there's a specific reason a strength coach would need it. Maybe he's carrying equipment in his car. I'm not sure. I hate that he's even having to deal with an issue, like a family related issue.
Yeah.
So I know he mentioned his school is pretty strict on NCAA rules. So that makes me feel a lot better. And I think because it's the NCAA, we have a lot of, you know, routes that we could take, and they really are protective of their student athletes.
Yeah, and that I'd hate to see anything derail or throw a wrench into his future plans, because that's an impressive young man. And he I would be okay with my favorite NBA team drafting him to play. That's a guy I want representing my team.
Yeah, he's got a wonderful, I mean, to be a freshman in college, realize that this is an issue and seek counsel. I mean, talk about talent and brains.
Yeah, he's truly an impressive kid. So where would you like to start? How do you think we should break this up?
I think I'm going to get started. I'll review the documents that he sends over.
Okay.
I'll also look at the NCAA. I know they redo their rules every once in a while, so I'll go look at the current NCAA rules and see if there's anything about this.
Make sure we're on top of our game there. I can't imagine that this is the first time that this has happened and it's raised a flag. So maybe look back if there's been any previous litigation between NCAA and a school hiring a family member. Definitely look into that, see if we have any precedent there. I will obviously start working on those talking points for that meeting. I think that's going to be our big step. I think coming forward and letting them know we don't want this to be an issue. We're amenable. We'll do what we need to do to make sure he stays eligible. That's our number one priority. So I think that'll go a long way.
Yeah, I agree. And if you also want to start drafting those talking points just to have them, I'm not sure when he'll want to set that meeting up or when they'll be able to, but just have those kind of in our pocket.
Yep, I think that's a good idea.
All right. Well, I am very excited to get started on this. I know you're excited to watch some more basketball today. So
yeah, I might have to go watch his highlight film on YouTube. See his talent level.
Yeah, that's right up your alley.
Well, it was a pleasure working with you today. Always my favorite part of the week.
Yep. Well, I look forward to finally being back in the office. So.
Oh, can't wait.
All right. Well, it's been a pleasure. Bye.
All right. Good afternoon, Tabitha.
Hey, Miriam. How are you doing today?
Doing good.
Good.
So our last client for today.
Okay.
So Skylar didn't give us a whole lot of information, but we have a Jess Knight meeting with us right now. So Jess wants to talk about some potential NCAA issues with his scholarship.
Okay.
Not really sure what those
more?
issues are. Nope. I think we just need to get Jess in and figure out what's going on.
All right. Sounds good. Let's bring him in. Hi, Jess Knight.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Tabitha and I have Miriam here with me. Is it okay to call you Jess?
Jess is fine, or Mr. Knight, either one.
Mr. Knight. Okay.
Right.
Okay, great. Well, thanks so much for meeting us here on the Zoom platform. It's definitely not as ideal as meeting with you in person, but I'm glad we can still use it nonetheless. On that note, if at any point in our meeting you have trouble hearing us or you have trouble with connection, don't worry. We'll figure it out. We'll get reconnected. We want to make this make the most of your time today and really give you everything you hope to accomplish today, okay?
I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, great. Well, Skylar told us that you paid your initial consultation fee. So everything that we discussed today is fully covered. If at the end of the meeting you should decide to retain us, we can discuss our fees and further if that works for you.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Awesome. So just before we get started, I do want to give you an idea of how this meeting is going to go and kind of set some expectations. So as Tabitha mentioned, you've already paid your initial consultation fee, so that does cover your time with us today. We anticipate this meeting is going to last a little over half an hour. We will continue to go through some additional administrative matters, such as, talking to you about our roles as attorneys and kind of what our expectations are. And then we'll hear from you. And so I'll let you know that while you're talking, both Tabitha and myself will be taking notes. And when you're done, we'll likely ask some clarifying questions just to make sure that we have a full understanding of what your particular circumstances are to help us in our analysis. And then ultimately, we'll give you what you're here for, right? Which is some legal advice. And so we'll talk about what options are available for you, both from a legal and a non-legal standpoint, and we'll cover, the most conservative option all the way to the most aggressive option. Does that make sense?
That does. Thank you, ma'am.
Perfect. I want to cover one other thing with you really quickly, just to kind of get it out of the way. Sometimes when we're meeting with new prospective clients, we get asked, why am I meeting with 2 attorneys as opposed to 1, right? And so Tabitha and myself deal a lot in the sports area, and that really does pull in a lot of different areas of the law. And so we find that we can better serve our clients if there are 2 of us in the initial consultation as opposed to 1. So does that make sense to you?
That does. I appreciate that clarification.
Absolutely.
Well, Jess, let me start by asking you, have you ever worked with an attorney before?
I have not worked with an attorney before.
Okay, well, great. Well, let me let you know that we have something called a duty of confidentiality. And what that means in part is that everything that we discuss today is going to be confidential. So nothing that you share with us will leave this space. And so we want you to feel extremely comfortable to share any and all information. Whether you feel that it's a good fact or a bad fact, the more that you can share with us, the more that we can really get a full picture and really give you the best legal advice possible, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and Jess, are you alone right now?
I am currently alone.
Okay, great. In order to preserve that confidentiality, if at any point in the meeting you are interrupted by someone, let us know. We'll stop and wait till you can get into a private place again, okay?
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. All right, Jess, well, why don't we start by, we'd love it if you would start by sharing with us kind of your goal for this meeting today.
So my goal for the meeting is to make sure that I don't lose my full ride basketball scholarship, and that this situation doesn't turn into a potential NCAA scandal starting out as a freshman. That would not be best for my career as possibly going professional.
Okay.
Okay. So sounds like 2 main goals is 1, you want to retain your full basketball scholarship, and
Correct.
2, you want to make sure that the particular circumstances does not turn into a potential NCAA scandal, given that it's just your freshman year. Is that right?
That is correct. Yes.
Okay, perfect. So we certainly want to be able to help you. Why don't you start from the beginning and tell us how we got here?
Okay. So I'm a freshman at State University, and I've been playing basketball since I was junior high school. And obviously, with the COVID situation going on, we are not in postseason or anything like that. We actually had a player come up COVID positive. So I'm currently quarantining with a negative test. So I'm glad that we could meet on Zoom.
Yes, for sure.
So the biggest concern is when I had was looking at universities, I knew State was had the ability and has had players go from college ball to professional. So that was one of the areas I was looking at universities. At the same time, I signed my agreement to play for State. My father was offered a job as the strength coach for the football team.
Okay.
And part of that, it was he had received a truck. And I had driven the truck one time to practice, and one of my teammates had mentioned, you're lucky you got a gift. Well, obviously that it can be extremely dangerous in terms of my scholarship and having a potential scandal on my hands. So that's the biggest 2 concerns that I have, and that's why I asked for legal advice from you too.
Definitely.
Absolutely. Just let me ask you this. So you mentioned that you are a freshman and you're on the basketball team. What position do you play?
I'm forward.
Nice.
Very cool.
Thank you.
And when was it that your friend said that?
It was after practice. I had driven the truck one day to practice, and he just mentioned it. I mean, we're all pretty open as a team, and he just mentioned that, it's cool that you got, the gift. I'm like, well, that caught me off by surprise. I didn't really know what to say because I don't want to say the wrong thing, but I knew it wasn't a gift because it's not my truck.
Definitely.
Sure. You mentioned that your father was offered a job around the same time that you accepted your scholarship. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And he received the truck as a part, I guess, along with the job offer, right?
To my knowledge, yes, that's what he had mentioned.
Okay. Out of curiosity, how often do you drive the truck?
I've driven the truck 10 times total.
Okay.
Been in the truck, I'm not sure. And don't really think about, getting in and out of the truck, but driven the truck 10 times. I've driven the truck.
Okay.
Okay.
Is it your dad's truck?
It is my dad's truck. It was offered to my father.
Okay. And is he usually driving the truck?
No, he has a Nissan Altima that he drives, and he prefers
Okay.
that over the truck.
Okay.
And the reason I ended up driving the truck is because my vehicle actually died. It was a Ford Taurus, and it had died. It was going to cost more than what it was worth to repair.
Okay. Can you do me a favor? Let's go back to when you said that you were given an agreement where you signed your agreement to play with state. And at the same time, your dad received his offer. Can you tell me about that situation in a little bit more detail?
I know that I was looking at starting in early May.
Okay.
And I'm not sure when my father actually, took the position. I just know it was right around the same time that I had agreed to go play for state.
Okay. And I think you said your junior year, but I just wanted to confirm of your junior year of high school that this happened, or your senior year?
For which?
When you accepted the scholarship to play at state
when
and your dad.
I accepted the scholarship to play with state my senior year.
Okay.
Just let me ask you a quick question. You mentioned, so I'm going to take you back for a second, that you've driven the truck a total of 10 times. Out of the 10 times that you've driven the truck, how many times have you actually driven it to practice or on or around campus?
To practice was only one time. And that was that one time when they mentioned the gift. And I had stopped taking it to practice or campus because I was afraid that, if I'm seen with the truck, that people could misconstrue that, hey, he got a gift or he got an incentive to come to state. So I had not taken it on to the university at all after that incident.
Okay. Your friend who mentioned this to you, is your friend also a college basketball player?
Yes, he is.
Okay. And I know you mentioned you didn't really know what to say, I guess, because you knew that there would be some potential concerns. What additional conversations, if any, have you had with your friend since this incident occurred?
The main thing that I got pointed across to him, other than it not being a gift, is that it was my father's truck and not mine. I wanted to make that very clear.
Okay.
But things can get misconstrued, and then it can go off and scandals happen. That's how, and then try to head that off at the pass.
Absolutely. And I think you did the right thing, because the minute someone starts speculating, you could take something and make it out of nothing. And so I apologize that you're kind of put in this position. And I can certainly understand your concern and why you would want to meet with us to determine what, if anything, we can do to make sure that you don't lose your scholarship. So let me ask you this, Jess. Have you had a conversation with your father regarding this incident?
I have not had a conversation with my father. For one of my concerns is I don't want my father thinking that he got hired and got the truck because I was highly sought after. So my biggest concern is like they gave it to him because of me, and I don't want that to impact how he has his views on at his job or the university, or towards the university, I should say.
Okay, that makes sense. Out of curiosity, do you know how his job is going?
I don't, like I said, he's a strength coach for the football, and I'm on the basketball. So I mean, we do see each other, like, you know, around the university, but in terms of knowing how his job is going, I'm not sure. I'm assuming well.
Okay, understandable. I want to talk to you a little bit about your scholarship in particular. So you mentioned that it's a full ride. How much is it worth? Are you aware?
I'm not aware of how much it's worth. I know I was given the option to either stay on campus or stay at home. But since we are fairly close to state, and my father is the strength coach and was a football coach in high school, he kind of knows how athletes are. So we decided that it'd be best if I just stayed at home, you know, work on academics, staying out of trouble. So
Definitely. That makes sense. Just to confirm, is State University with the NCAA?
yes.
Okay. And are they Division I?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they are.
Okay.
Just outside of this conversation that you've had with your friend, who's also on the basketball team, have you had any other conversations with any other either athletes or just college students in general regarding you driving your father's truck?
No, I haven't had anyone mention, or I haven't heard anything. I haven't talked to anybody else about, you know, the truck at all. I figured it's a one-time deal, but, you know, I still don't want to have that underlying awareness going on, since he was obviously aware it's not my truck, but he still mentioned it.
Absolutely. Out of curiosity, have you gotten your car? Is your car in a position where it's drivable now?
No, it's not. Right now, we haven't been using obviously that car since it's broken down. And with me being in quarantine, I've been obviously limited on where I could go. So my current vehicle is the Raptor, the truck right now.
The truck. Okay.
Obviously, I'm trying not to go to campus with it, and if I do have to, I'll try and ride with my father.
Okay, that makes sense. And I know quarantine is not fun. I do have had to quarantine before, and I can imagine at some point you will be transitioning back to, you know, going to campus and going to practices. And certainly appreciate your concern about not wanting to drive the truck specifically. I do want to make sure that there is some type of alternative available for you. So I guess my question is, what are your plans for getting your vehicle back on the road? And if it is undrivable, or if you can't get it fixed, do you have a backup, a different backup, or what is your plan?
Well, my father has a 2019 Nissan, and
Okay.
he prefers to drive that over the truck. So that could be a possible alternative. Other than me driving the truck, I could maybe drive his Nissan.
Okay.
Definitely.
And I understand at this point, this is not a conversation yet that you've had with your father, but
Correct.
okay. Why does he enjoy the Nissan over the truck? I'm just curious.
He's had the Nissan for a while, and it's broken into how he wants it.
Absolutely.
That makes sense. Well,
He's
just
attached.
how has your season been going apart from the COVID quarantine? How's your team been doing?
Well, we were pretty high ranked, and then
Okay.
obviously we had a COVID positive, so we actually missed the last couple of games in the season. So we're not eligible to play further on, which is a little bit disappointing. But
Yeah.
so it's a little rough, but it's all right though. So we just need to make sure everyone stays healthy and continue on.
I'm sorry to hear that. I know that athletes you guys have sacrificed a lot this year to keep playing in the COVID time. So I'm really sorry to hear that. I know that's frustrating.
Yeah, it was a little bit frustrating, but we have to do what we can do to protect each other. And as a team, we look out for each other. So it was the best interest of the team and the coaches to all right, we're done. So it was good on the university to make sure that everyone's healthy.
Yeah, and I'm glad you're a freshman too. That helps because you have a future ahead of you. So, Jess, let me ask you this. Have any other players had any cars or anything that you've noticed, any kind of suspicious looking gifts or something like that would make a friend say, oh, that looks like a gift?
No, and that's why it was concerning that he said that is
Okay.
none of the other players have anything, and State University is pretty strict. I mean, they follow the NCAA guidelines, and that was one of the reasons, another one of the reasons why I like the universities, because not all universities follow them to the T, but State University follows them pretty well.
Definitely.
Just let me ask you a question. I want to go back. You mentioned that you signed an agreement to play with State. Do you have a copy of this signed agreement?
I do.
You do? Okay. And I don't know how tech savvy you are. I'm not super tech savvy. So I don't know if you're in a position where you can actually send it to us now via the chat feature, but if not, that's something that we would certainly want to take a look at for you. Because sometimes it outlines certain provisions and talks about what you can and cannot do. And so I'm just curious, based off of the agreement that you have, is there anything in the writing itself that signals that this could be a cause for concern?
Not to my knowledge. I don't have it on hand with me. I'd have to get it from my files and try and send that to you, later on. But to my knowledge and thinking back, I don't believe that there's anything about incentives or anything like that.
Okay. Just I want to let's talk about best case, worst case scenarios, and I just really want to get a feel for where your head's at. Okay. So you're a freshman, you accepted this full ride to play at State. Sounds like you're super excited about it. You obviously took a lot of time to think about your decision. And you were very intentional in choosing State. It is my hope, and I think Tabitha would agree, that we're going to do everything we can to make sure that you retain that scholarship and that this does not turn into a potential NCAA scandal. Hypothetically speaking, if you were to lose the scholarship, what would that mean for you?
Losing the scholarship would personally be devastating. Financially, I don't know how we would do. I mean, I'm still, like I said, I'm living at home with parents, and since I wouldn't have a scholarship, I don't know if I'd be able to pay for college myself, or how. That would be another conversation I'd have to have with my father and parents about how we would pay for continuing going to college. So that would be a big concern of losing the scholarship.
Absolutely, I can certainly understand that. How's your relationship with your coach?
My coach's relationship, we have a pretty good relationship. So, I mean, it's been pretty open. He's helped me get from starting point, the whole recruitment, walking me through, helped out with things I didn't understand through recruitment, and, what was in my contract for signing for playing for the State.
Definitely. Jess, let me ask you one more thing. When you guys meet with your compliance officer in NCAA, right? Pretty often. Have you guys had him come, and did he say something that kind of concerned you, or was it just your friend?
It was just my friend that mentioned it. I mean, and we all have certain people that talk, and I'm not saying that he is one of them, but if it's overheard, it can get out of control, just because if something's misunderstood or they didn't hear a reply, it can get out of control very quickly. And that's what I'm trying to stop.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
Who is your compliance officer for State? Do you know?
I off the top of my head, I can't think of their name. I'm sorry.
Okay. Nope. Don't apologize. It is completely okay. That's something that we can find out. I guess at this point, just before we start diving into all of the legal talk, what else about your particular situation would be helpful for us to know in assisting you in resolving this problem?
I don't know anything else that I could put in that would be more beneficial. Other than what I've already said, I can't think of anything right now.
Okay.
Okay, well, just let me go ahead and summarize just what you've shared with us, and then we'll kind of delve into what our perspective is from a legal standpoint, okay?
Okay.
Okay, so you are a well sought after basketball player forward. It sounds like you've been having a great season until COVID happened, which I'm once again so sorry about that. And but about the time that you agreed to play with State University, your dad also around that time was given a job opportunity with State University with the football teams as a strength and conditioning coach. And he received a truck at that point in time. And then recently, when you were at a practice, you've been driving his truck because of your Ford breaking down. And so about 10 times you've driven the truck. And so recently a friend made this offhand comment to you, hey, that's lucky you got a gift, kind of making a kind of idea that you were given an incentive to come and play at State. And so your goals today are you don't want to lose that full ride scholarship you've been given. And you also want to make sure that this isn't going to turn into some kind of a scandal and just what you can do in the situation.
That's correct.
Did I miss anything?
No, that's pretty accurate. Yes.
Okay. So there are a couple of things that I want to talk to you about. And so I'm going to try to take one step at a time. Okay.
Okay.
So first of all, kudos to you for being abreast of the NCAA and their rules.
Yeah.
A lot of athletes, while they should be aware of what they are not, right? And so I think that the fact that you heard the word gift, it triggered something in you to say, this doesn't sound right, and you did the right thing. So as you are aware, the NCAA, as well as the university, they are very concerned with making sure that students are students first and athletes second, right?
Correct.
And so because of that, they have certain rules about what you can and cannot do in terms of maintaining your eligibility or your status as an amateur. And as you are fully aware, one of those things is accepting gifts, right? And so what we don't want is for this to come off as a gift. And so couple things. I'm going to be super transparent with you. Off the top of my head, this is a difficult situation, or a unique situation. I shouldn't say difficult. Unique in the sense that the truck was not given directly to you. The truck was given to your father, and that you occasionally drive the truck. And so what I would want to do to do a little bit of research to see if that particular factual scenario would even constitute a gift within the meaning of the NCAA rules. Okay. If it doesn't, then you're fine. Okay. If it does, and I think we want to take the route, well, what if it is, right? If it is considered a gift, then the next question is, well, what can we do to ensure that you retain your scholarship and that you don't lose it as a result of inadvertently doing something that you were unaware would be considered a gift? Okay. I have a tendency to get long-winded, so I'm going to stop at points just to make sure that you're following me and what I'm saying makes sense. Are we on the same page so far?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, perfect. So number 2 would be with the NCAA, they have certain levels of violations. Okay, so you could have a major violation, or a secondary level 1 or secondary level 2 violation. The point is that not every violation has to be reported directly to the NCAA. There are some things that can be handled internally between the compliance officer and the school. And so what in that case, a way to kind of mitigate things would be to kind of self-report, right? And in your situation, you're not self-reporting and saying, hey, I know that I did something wrong. It is, hey, I understand that by driving my dad's truck, it came off as if I personally received a gift. That certainly was not my intentions. And so I want to have a conversation with a compliance officer and your athletic director and possibly your coach to find out what we can do to kind of nip this in the bud before it blows up and becomes more than what it is. Does that make sense?
That does.
Okay. And out of curiosity, are you comfortable having a conversation with your coach or athletic director and your compliance officer about the particular details related to the incident with driving the truck and your friend's comment?
I would be open to it.
Okay. I want to touch on one other point. This doesn't directly involve you, but I'd be remiss if I didn't at least bring it up. Okay. So you're obviously meeting with us today. Your dad is not, right? But your dad, my assumption, I'm assuming, likely signed a contract of some sort with the school in exchange for receiving the truck. And so my concern would be that he might want to have someone take a look at his agreement with the school to make sure that he is not violating any particular terms by having someone else other than himself drive the truck. Because the last thing we would want to do is to, by doing this, put your dad in a predicament or in a situation where he's caught off guard and he potentially suffers some type of consequence as a result of it. Does that make sense?
That does. It makes sure that he's protected as well, in other words.
Absolutely. There might not be anything to it, but I think we should cover all of our bases. And I know that we're having a conversation with you today, but if the decision is to move forward and have a very transparent conversation with some of the individuals on campus, I don't want your dad caught off guard. And so I would want him to have someone or himself look into the terms of his agreement to make sure that he's not violated any particular terms to cover him as well. Tabitha, did you want to jump in and say something?
Yeah, no, I agree. Like Miriam was saying, it can be, you know, when it comes to recruiting, when they, your family can be someone that can also benefit, and that also can get them in trouble, can get the university in trouble as well. And so, like Miriam was saying, it'll be good to kind of look into those details of them. Time frame matters. So I know that recruiting usually opens up around April time. And there's like time frames of what they can and cannot do. But like she said, gift giving is not something that we want them to perceive. And so with the violations, as she was communicating, I do want to put you at ease a little bit, depending on the type of violation. The secondary violations, if they see it as falling within that realm, those are resolved pretty quickly, and they're not uncommon to happen in universities. And your university should have, like she said, internally, they usually can deal with some of these violations if they find that it is a violation. And so they have a process by which you can go about. And also, if at some point, based on what they say, you also will have an appeal period where you get to be heard. But that's getting a little bit ahead, but I do just want to let you know that in self-reporting, it's a step in the right direction, because she said, like she said, the term mitigate. And I've seen cases where the self-reporting is a mitigating factor that benefits the person, and the NCAA takes that into consideration should they become involved, if it becomes to that extent. That's a lot moving ahead, but I just want to kind of give you a full picture that there are a lot of options that you have to be heard, and we can assist you in that. I know you said you're comfortable with speaking to them. One thing we do sometimes for our clients is kind of give them almost like a bullet list or information of what to say, how to communicate, to kind of prepare them for a meeting if they don't want us to go with them. Would you be interested in something like that?
Yeah, that would be a great help if I decided to go that route. I mean, there's also, if the ability comes, have the ability to have you guys there, or if we're still doing it through Zoom, have you guys in the Zoom meeting as well. If not, the bullet points would be a great help, that make
Okay.
sure that I didn't miss anything and I can relay that information back to both of you.
Okay. And just, I want to just take a step back for a second and recognize the positives in this, okay? So one, at this point, nothing has happened, right? I think you're doing the right thing to get ahead of it. But at this point, you've not been accused, at least not by the school or the NCAA, of violating their rules. Your friend made a comment. And so you're at a really good point to figure out how to deal with this. The other point I want to make is we're talking about, self-reporting. This could be a violation, et cetera. But remember, this is a very unique situation, right? This truck wasn't given directly to you. Based on your knowledge, it doesn't seem like your father was given his position as a result because the school was trying to seek you out. Because there are some unique situations where even if a parent or someone benefits as a result, that it could harm you, but it doesn't sound like that was the case here either, right? So the question is whether you driving your father's truck because you had a vehicle that was inoperable constitutes a gift within the meaning of the NCAA rules. And if it doesn't, you're good to go, okay? So that's the best case scenario. We provide all this other information on the back end, just in case for some reason that gets challenged. It would be unfair to you, and we wouldn't be doing our jobs if we didn't also make you aware of kind of worst case scenarios, but talking about if they arise, how we would handle them. Tabitha and myself have been talking a lot, and so I kind of want to hear from you and get a feel for how you feel right now and kind of how you would like to proceed.
For right now, I mean, it seems like we have a good path laid out in front of me that's not too difficult not to follow. I mean, it seems like everything is pretty straightforward, not overcomplicated. And it seems like it's, like you said, taking the right path of going, and self-reporting seems like the easy thing. And then meeting with the coach and everybody for the university to start clearing things up if there is some misconceptions on me driving the truck a couple times or one time, or I just want to get ahead of that and make sure everything is, the fire's put out before fires even started, so to speak. So I believe the path that we're taking seems to be a good step forward that is clear, concise, and understanding for my ability to do what you guys would want me to do.
Absolutely. And I think just the other thing I would say is don't I would say let's do things that don't even give the appearance as if you're taking a gift or a bribe or violating an NCAA rules. And so to the extent that you can stop driving your father's truck, I would recommend that you stop driving it.
Okay.
I know that you mentioned that, when you and your father were kind of debating about, state, you live relatively close, so you're not far from the school. I know they're not taking the bus, might not be extravagant or nice as driving a truck, but until you get your vehicle back up and running, I would say let's consider some alternatives to getting back and forth until we are sure that we are in the clear. Okay.
That makes sense. I agree with that.
Okay.
And Jess, I do just want to, I noticed at the end you were saying what you want me to do. I do just want to, and it might just have been just the way you said it, but I wanted to assure to you, everything we're saying to you is our recommendation, but ultimately we want you to make the decision. We're here to support you and counsel you, but at the end of the day, it's your choice. You're in the driver's seat, okay?
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you for that reassurance.
Yeah. So at this point, I think next steps would be one, at the end of this meeting, let me first let you know that we charge an hourly rate of $200 an hour.
Okay.
How does that sound to you?
I'd have to talk to my father. Maybe we might be able to work something out for like a reduced fee or something like that. Because obviously as a full-time student scholarship, I'm working. So we might have to, I'd either have to discuss with the both of you of a possible reduced fee, or I'd have to talk to my father at the same time about, you know, making sure his stuff is protected, of possibly helping out for payments as well.
Okay, yeah, I appreciate you saying that, because we do want to work with you. And that's why I was asking you. Miriam, I think you were about to say something.
I do. I wanted to put a couple of things into perspective, because a lot of times when people hear our fees and you say $200 an hour, and you're like, what does that mean? How many hours, right? Do you need, and what is it going to cost me? And so if you are going to have a conversation with him, I want to put some things into perspective. And so just for clarity purposes, I think where we are, step one is that, one, we want to take a look at your signed agreement, and we want to do a little bit of research to find out if your unique situation would be considered a gift. If so, then we would want to set up a meeting and either give you the talking points and or assist or attend that meeting with you. The meeting itself, hopefully, we can get done within an hour, right? Okay. The initial research to just confirm whether this would be considered a violation or not may take, you know, an hour, 2 hours. It just depends, but I can't anticipate much more than that. And so at least on the front end, just, and don't quote me on this, right? But I want to just give you kind of some type of idea. We're probably talking about, at least on the front end, was doing the initial research, coming up with some talking points for the meeting, and actually attending the meeting, somewhere between 5 to 7 hours on the front end. If for some reason taking those steps are insufficient and we have to do more, then we can reassess at that point. But I wanted to give you kind of an idea of what you might be looking at. In best case scenario, if it's not a violation, then it's not much at all, okay?
I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you mentioned earlier how much this this scholarship means to you in terms of your financial ability. And so we are certainly conscious of that. And so we're certainly happy to have a conversation if we need to moving forward about our fees. We certainly want to make sure that you can retain us without it being too much of a financial burden. Okay.
I appreciate that. That means a lot.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then just one more thing touching on that, like Miriam was discussing with you the different details of what we would be doing. We are not going to work on the same thing at the same time. So we will make sure that we don't duplicate our work. So you won't be having two people billing you. Okay. So if I'm working on research, she would be working on something different. We're going to divide and conquer. Okay.
Okay. I appreciate that. That makes sense.
Okay, great. So what I'll do is at the end of this meeting, I'm going to first, I'm going to send you a summary of our meeting that lays it out, what we've discussed, as well as our engagement letter that discusses the fees and the scope of our representation. You can take a look at that, review it. If you have any questions, give us a call before you sign. And then 2, we'll give you a to-do list of documents that we'd like you to send to us so that we can review them.
Okay.
And then I will reach out to you in the next 48 hours, 72 hours, something like that, just to double check if I haven't heard from you. Okay.
Okay. I appreciate that.
Okay. All right. Well, Miriam, do you have anything else?
I do not. Jess, I'm so excited that you came to meet with us today. I certainly think you did the right thing, and we look forward to representing you. We know you got to speak with your father and make sure financially that this is something that you're able to do. But if it becomes an issue, please reach out to us sooner than later, because we certainly want to get started on this sooner than later for you. Okay.
Okay. I appreciate that, ladies. I really do.
All right. Thanks so much, Jess. We'll be in touch with you.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
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 So Tabitha, I know that you're going to get the engagement letter together and kind of give him a to-do list. I think at this point, we'll kind of have to hold off until we hear back from him with respect to whether or not he's going to be able to make the payment. But I don't know what your thoughts are. And I know we might have to talk to the other partner, but I would be open to taking this on a pro bono basis if need be. I mean, he's a freshman in college. He certainly is highly intelligent, obviously, and he did the right thing. So
high integrity too.
Absolutely. So if it comes down to it, I'd just like to have that in our back pocket.
Okay.
So I know you'll probably be the one following up with him, and we'll, I guess, check with the partners to make sure, but I'm okay if you are with doing that if we need to.
Yeah, I would be open to that. And also I want to, when you research, it'd be good also just to look into the institution's role with the NCAA. I know that sometimes it's the institution that's more penalized in a situation like this than even the student athlete. So I have a good feeling that the state is going to want to work this out as well, so that they don't look in trouble down the road.
Absolutely. Well, the sooner he gets back with us, the sooner we can get started.
Right.
But I'm so glad that he met with us. So I guess just keep me posted on your communications with him. And again, we know, we'll talk with the partners, but I think we have it in our back pocket that we can take it at a reduced fee or pro bono if need be.
All right, sounds good. Well, Miriam, let's get to work then.
All right, awesome.
Client David, will you first tell us about yourself, your real self?
My real self. My name is David Braun Harrison. I am a medically retired sergeant from the Army. I kind of got dragged into this competition via my wife and Miss Smotherman here. My wife is actually a student at OU. And there was a call for volunteers, and I'm here volunteering to help future lawyers, attorneys out. And I wish you guys all the best of luck. Background wise, I have a degree in criminal justice, so my basic knowledge is there. Other than that, there's not a whole lot. Proud father, but I'm 36 years old, though I do look 19. So just want to put that one out there. But no, I do. I did have a good time doing everything and helping you guys out. It was very informative, and I enjoyed it a lot, actually. Thank you.
Okay, well, we love volunteers, whether they're volunteers or voluntold, we don't care. So as long as you show up. So how about everybody? Yay, David. Okay. All right. Thank you, sir. All right. We're going to let the judges give feedback to the teams, and then we'll announce, and we'll go home. No, we're already home. Then we will just turn off our cameras. Okay. Judges, who's first?
I'll go so I can mute myself afterwards. So because my dog will probably start barking. My name's Kevin Maddox, and I am an administrative law judge and an attorney and a mediator. And I love the client counseling competition. I was a member of the client counseling team at the OU College of Law in the late 80s and early 90s. So it's dear to my heart. Do you want me to give my comments now, Connie, or just the introduction?
Why don't you go ahead and start? I think you all told me you had decided to do one team at a time. So
Yes.
why don't you do your first team, and then as the others do the first team, they can introduce themselves.
Perfect. Regarding Team H, which was the first team, I thought you guys did a great job. You were very pleasant, very approachable. You did an incredible job on the confidentiality part. I loved that you asked if they were in rooms alone with the doors closed, because that's a huge issue, especially doing remote stuff. And you were the only people that did that. And I thought that was great. And I loved how you rephrased things to make it less scary for the client. I have lots of other things, but I know you guys want to move on. So but great job. Very good job.
I'm Ann Lawrence, and I've judged this competition quite a few times. I love it because in my career, I've worked with attorneys and the legal system and that sort of thing. I actually worked with victims of violent crime for 30 years and then taught at the university for 15 years. And so that's sort of a little bit about my background. And I bring a little bit different perspective, but I think that the thing that we have in common is when people come to us, they come to us because they need help. And we have to find out what kind of help they need and whether we're able to provide that to them or not, right? So I love this competition. I think it's really important. Team H, you had great teamwork. You all, I mean, it's like you all have worked together forever and ever. I thought you were very, you had a very strong ability to build rapport with Jess, and you did make sure that the confidentiality was maintained. And I think you were pretty clear about your ethical responsibility. And the other thing that I liked that you did was give him a range of options. You know, you talked to him and developed a range of options. And I thought those were your strong points. The only thing that I had is written is the billing information was a little confusing, but that would be my feedback for something for you all to think about. But good job, all of you. Be proud of what you did today. This is a tough situation. It's very stilted. And it, you know, having it on Zoom, it has even made it more difficult. So kudos to all three teams. You did a great job.
All right, I guess that puts me up. My name is David Hale. I'm a small town one-man band lawyer in Southeast Oklahoma. I came at lawyering from background as a TV producer and just got into it to help people. So with that said, I believe it was Nick and Katheryn, if I got your names down right, for Team H. I echo everything that the other judges have said. One thing that I was especially noted is that you guys called out that, hey, we recognize there's a potential for some family conflict here with it being between son and dad. I thought that was, you know, recognizing that issue, even though he didn't specifically address it and saying, hey, we recognize that this could come up. And especially when you're dealing with a 19-year-old kid, that can be something that maybe they haven't even thought of, but it's good to get them thinking about it to potentially make your job easier down the road. I also noted you folks were very warm. And also you did a great job of just saying, hey, you know, this is kind of just an initial step. Obviously, we're going to need to do some more looking. We're going to need to gather some information to fill this out before we can really have a full game plan. The one note I had, and I think it might have a little bit to do with nerves, was just take a half a second, slow down just a touch, and take a breath between concepts sometimes. I think, you know, right at the front end, I noticed that, but towards the end, you guys have worked that out. So I think it was probably just a little bit of nerves, but, again, great job.
Are we moving on to Team I? Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. You guys did a great job as well. I wrote down Brendan and Malory. You were the only ones that had a pre-meeting that we saw, and I thought that was very interesting, and that would be normal in the course of being a lawyer, that you would in fact have pre-meetings or at least discussions about the client beforehand. You did an incredible job signposting with the client, letting the client know, here's what we're going to do. I think you gave you called it 3 sections. I think that's really helpful for clients when you do that. I loved that you said, this is your meeting, you're in control. That was really, really powerful to me. And that towards the end, you said, we've given you our ideas, and now we want to know, do you have any other ideas or options? And that's really great, a question for them. And overall, I thought you guys had a very professional lawyer-like demeanor. And you'll do well in your careers. I'm certain of that.
I agree. You all are some lawyers. You got in there and you started gathering information. You gathered so much information so quickly and spent your time, you know, actually getting information that may be very helpful to you as you formulate how to move forward for that case. So I thought that was probably your strongest asset. One of the things that I would like for you to consider moving forward is you might want to consider that, and this is the counseling part for me, you might want to consider reframing some of your statements and comments in a positive as opposed to a negative way. For example, talking about wanting to help him protect his scholarship status, as opposed to, we don't want you to lose your scholarship. Do you hear the difference a little bit there? I think it can be very soothing to people who are just meeting you and thinking, okay, these people can really help me out of this situation. If they hear the positive, we're on your side, we're working with you kind of thing. Good job, you all.
All right. You know, one question that you folks did particularly well is I noticed that you asked whose idea it was for this truck. That's something I've done a little bit of NCAA compliance work, and that's, you know, going to become a key issue, kind of going back to getting down at the core facts. And also back to signposting a little bit, you were good at kind of identifying as you were wrapping up the issues that needed to be run down. Hey, you know, we need to do this, we need to do this, we need to do this, and kind of putting together that game plan. If I remember correctly, I didn't put it in my notes, but if I remember, that was after Mr. Knight had left the meeting, but you did a good job of putting together that game plan. And that's something that's important to come out of these meetings, is regardless of the facts that you collect, if you don't know what to do with them next, you don't have a good game plan, then you can get lost in you know, spending clients' money. Quite frankly, and as a one-man band, small town lawyer, that's always one of those things that I'm highly cognizant of, is keeping those things. So I think you did that really well. Also, identifying who the other stakeholders were that needed to be involved in this process, that had interests that were specifically aligned with your client. You know, the AD compliance officers, stuff like that. I believe everyone brought those in, but I noted that you guys kind of captured that all in one spot and did that well. Overall, again, great job.
Okay, Team F, Miriam and Tabitha, I think I got your names right. Fantastic job as well. I have to say, I don't know if you two know that much about basketball, but boy, I was convinced that you totally knew all about basketball and the NCAA. And one of you asked the client if he was in the first division or what division he was in. And I was like, wow, they really know what they're talking about. So that was very impressive. You did a great job at signposting. By the way, you guys were the only ones that asked the specific questions about the division. I didn't hear anybody else ask about that. My favorite part was when you talked about pro bono. That was a really nice element. And it made me think, good, you're civic minded, you're thinking about the future and the needs that you're going to encounter. And I love that you had a good heart for that. So that was very impressive, and you guys did a great job. Congratulations.
Yes, I'm pretty sure that at least one of you played basketball or know someone very well that did. So I thought you all, again, all of you just did a remarkable job. And I loved seeing the differences. You know, all effective approaches, but different approaches. And I always am fascinated by that. I thought that you all were very welcoming. You did focus on his, I mean, if you think about it, your client is a full ride scholarship basketball player. So what is on his mind? Basketball. And you all really brought that into the conversation and engaged him through that. So I thought that was really, really good. Also, I thought that you gave a very thorough explanation of options and possibilities and the possible consequences of each of those decisions. I think that was an important element. Also, I really liked it that you offered this wide range of choices from, well, let's check and see if this is even reportable, if this is, I mean, maybe we can solve this just by letting you have a easy, quick conversation with a coach or compliance officer. You know, I mean, you took the least difficult journey first and worked up to, you know, if there's a problem with your scholarship, then we may have to look at other things. So I thought that that was good. I really felt that you empowered your client to make the decision about what he would have been comfortable with. So kudos, good job. All of you all were just awesome. Feel your awesomeness, people.
All right, my first comment, and I believe it was Miriam who said this. She said the phrase, nip it in the bud. And that's a pet peeve of mine. I hear people all the time say, nip it in the butt. And it's bud, comes from pruning trees. Awesome. Sorry, I couldn't not say something about that. I think one thing that I noticed that you guys did well is identifying that, hey, you know, your dad could potentially have some contract issues that you might, you know, identifying for your client, especially being a younger guy who might not necessarily be thinking about how this affects other people, identifying and going, hey, you know, this could be an issue for your dad and his contract too. We need to be aware of that as we work through this process. You did have a lot of options. I felt like it could have been just a little bit more linear in laying out those options, but it was good having those options out there and making those available and really putting that decision in your client's hands. And again, echo the comments of the other judges. Thank you.
All right. So if you all will allow me just a moment of a personal thank you. These three judges are my friends. Sarah and Erica at the ABA that run all of these ABA competitions are my friends. And the three other committee members from the schools all over the United States are my friends. They work very hard, and these judges have given up their time. And this committee worked so hard to make this competition work well. I'm going to ask you all to give them a thanks, but I just want to say to them, thank you very much for being my friend and willing to do all this with me. So, but let's give everybody that worked to make this competition work a big hand.
And while we're giving hands to people, please, please give a big round of applause to Connie Smotherman for running a perfect competition. So way to go, Connie.
Thank you, Pat. You know why it's perfect? Because we are done. And everything ran on time, except I said the announcement would be at 4 and it's going to be at 4:04. But hey, give me a little break. Okay. All right. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to go third, second, first. It will be anticlimactic for first, but you're the first place winner, so, you know, get over it. First place, be expecting an email from Larry Tepley from Creighton, who will give you the invitation to the international competition. Runners up, you just be ready in case the first place winner can't make it to international, you may get an invitation. Okay, all right, here we go. Congratulations to all of you. In third place, Team F, Campbell. Very good. Second place, Team I, Mercer. And the National Client Counseling Competition first place winner is Team H from William and Mary.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So much. Thank you.
Congratulations to
Yeah.
all three of you. You made it out of 160 teams. Oh my gosh.